Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 171st ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing great, Cam. I think we remembered to turn the camera on today, so...
It's on.
Doing just fine.
Yep.
How about you?
We called it technical difficulties, Kyle.
Oh, was I supposed to pretend like we didn't... Like that was just some kind of technical issue out of our control?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, my bad.
Now everybody knows we just forgot to start the camera last week.
Oops.
It's okay. They probably skipped the intro anyway, so they didn't hear any of that.
You're probably right.
Kyle, football season is done. We got a bowl game to look forward to. But we'll talk about the Arkansas game a little bit, kind of do a little bit of a regular season wrap up. We'll probably dive deeper into a full season look back a little bit later. And but it's transfer time, it's coaching carousel, it's recruiting news, signing days coming up. So there's lots of football still to talk about. Then we'll jump into basketball and see if we can find anything fun to talk about there. But before we do that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Check out our Patreon page, Missouri Sports Pod, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. And shout out to some of our listeners who posted that we were one of their top podcasts in their Spotify Wrapped presentation. Very cool. Obviously, a lot of people listen on Apple or just watch on YouTube or what have you. So we appreciate all of our viewers and listeners, but that was cool to see some screenshots of people's Spotify thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kyle, Missouri lost their last game of the football season to Arkansas 34-17. I think we can kind of just use the Arkansas game as a way to transition into a little bit of a season wrap-up. The offense was still bad. You know, it's been bad for a little while, and it was still bad outside of Tyler Beatty.
Yeah, the whole season just kind of went in like a weird cycle where the defense was atrocious. Like starting off the season, the offense was carrying us, and then by the end of the year, it had completely flipped. And I'm not really sure why. I'm not really sure what happened, but clearly by the end of the year, the defense was playing confident, and something happened with Connor Bazelak. I don't know if he just wasn't healthy. He took some hard hits throughout the year. I don't know if that just kind of compounded and kind of hurt his confidence as he went. I don't know, but something wasn't right about him. I hope that, I don't know if it was maybe a mixture of that and play calling. I don't know, but there was clearly some issues, and Drink is going to have his work cut out for him this offseason, kind of trying to figure out how we're going to improve. Yeah,
definitely. I think a factor that has to be playing in here somehow is offensive line play, and they have not looked bad. But when you're throwing the ball very quickly, which is something that Connor Bazelak has always done well, but when the offense is kind of geared towards these very quick throws that don't travel very far, that's going to help the offensive line. It's not going to hurt the offensive line. So I'm not saying that the offensive line was bad. I thought they had a pretty good season overall, but perhaps there was an underlying weakness there that Coach Drinkwitz was trying to avoid by not keeping Bazelak in the pocket too long.
Yeah, that's very possible. It just felt like watching that game. And early on in the game, Boo Smith was wide open, and they just missed him. And I guess maybe this is just a close-minded thought, but I just wish they would have taken more shots. I guess they just would have tried to create some more opportunities down the field. Didn't seem like they tried at all.
It seemed like early they were willing to a little bit, and then it just didn't really work. I just thought there were some misses, but we saw Alabama, obviously much better offense than Missouri's, just dice the Arkansas defense up. Mm-hmm. Just do whatever they wanted to through the air. And you got to think Missouri could do some of that with the athletes we have at receiver. But, yeah, there was just not really an attempt to do that. Connor Bazelak on the game, 10 for 26, 65 yards, and 1 interception.
It's just awful. And you think about what Tyler Beatty did this year, too. It's even more amazing, actually, probably considering he was like our only weapon that worked. Like, he had 41 carries. against
insane.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's no reason that even like your best player, even like Derrick Henry, should not get 40 carries in a game. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the defense just knows exactly what's coming. They can stack the box, and Tyler Beatty was still efficient. And you know what would have made him a lot more efficient is if the defense had to respect a passing game.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And I don't know. It was pretty it was frustrating to watch, and it was painful, and it was boring, and I felt like I've been a little frustrated with the offense, but I felt like the Arkansas game was kind of where I just lost it a little bit. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, just rolling out the same conservative approach, same quarterback. It's not working, but we just kept trying it.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record, but if you're going to play that conservatively, why not put in the quarterback that you have the ability to run some option runs with?
Right. Why are you going to run an RPO with a quarterback that's not a threat to run? What's the point of running a run pass option if there is not an option?
I don't. It's
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so confusing.
I just don't get it.
I think the quarterback position will be a topic of conversation throughout the offseason.
I think you're right.
So we'll maybe need to table that for right now.
Yeah, we could really get going if we don't stop now. But I do think it's possible that Missouri looks at a transfer quarterback this offseason, and there's some pretty big names out there that we'll probably talk about in a minute. But I don't know who's going to play quarterback for Missouri next season, but
I hope the coaching staff doesn't know as well. Tyler Beatty, 41 carries, 219 yards and a touchdown. Just capping off one of the most legendary seasons for any player in Mizzou history. I just can't say enough about how impressive he has been this entire season. And to cap it off like this is just really, really cool. And I especially like the fact that he broke the single season Mizzou rushing record without even needing the bowl game. So it just makes the record books all that prettier.
I'm really gonna miss tweeting how much I love Tyler Beatty.
Yeah,
it's been a wonderful thing that I've had the privilege of doing the past few years.
You might get to do that on Sundays every once in a while.
Maybe so.
His regular season totals 1,600 yards rushing on 268 attempts. 6 yards per carry for the whole season. His longest rush was 73 yards, and he had 14 touchdowns on the ground. And he also had the most receptions on the team with 54. And I think maybe, it looks like 4 more touchdowns through the air. Incredible season.
Unbelievable.
Looking at some of the other players' season totals, Bazelak finished with about 2,500 yards, 65% completion percentage, not terrible. Just under 7 yards per attempt, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So obviously that interception number is a little too high.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I need to go back and watch. Again, I don't want to get too hard back into this, but just one more thing. I mean, he really started off the season pretty well.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch the Kentucky game. It's the second game of the year. We scored 28 points or something against Kentucky. It wasn't an amazing offensive performance, but it blew away what we were doing by the end of the year. So I need to go back and remind myself of what the offense was doing differently than what they're doing now.
He threw the ball 51 times, about 300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
That'll normally get it done.
Yeah. Looking at the receivers, their year-end totals, Towski Dove had 35 receptions. Kiki Chisholm had 36. Dove had 550 yards. No touchdowns for him. Chisholm 450 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing too, just how the wide receivers were used by the end of the year. I think those guys are talented, but they just didn't really get a chance to do anything. They were just getting a few targets a game by the end of the year.
Yeah. Boo Smith is had a pretty interesting season. Honestly, he and J.J. Hester. Smith with 8 receptions on the season for 195 yards. That's good for 24 yards per reception. And then Hester, 1 more reception, so 21 yards per reception. pretty good.
Some big play guys.
Yeah. Harrison Mevis, can't say enough about him. Perfect 40 for 40 on extra points, 20 for 22 on field goals. Both of his field goals came in the 40 to 49 yard range. He was 3 for 3 from 50 plus. And we get him for 2 more seasons.
He's an NFL kicker right now, I think.
Yeah, hopefully we get him.
Don't
for 2
tell
more
anybody.
Seasons.
Yeah.
Do like what's the?
I don't know.
Kickers leaving early. Is there any precedent for that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do that.
Yeah.
There's been how many kickers have ever been drafted? Like maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we got to worry about it.
No.
So the offense, I feel like in the Arkansas game was like a perfect microcosm of like the last half of the season. Basically, like since the defense turned it around and started playing better, the offense was like, okay, we'll take a break now.
Basically. I mean, the first half of the game, I mean, what was the score? 10-6 or something at halftime?
Yeah.
Defense was playing great, and at some point, you just have to think nothing is going to change. This offense isn't going to score. They're not putting us in a position to win the game. Why are we busting our butts?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's probably not exactly that like negative of a, but when you're out there, you know, play after play after play, just having to go right back out there, you know, after 3 and out from the offense, it's just demoralizing. And you just can't keep playing to the best of your ability for a full game if you're out on the field the whole time.
Yeah, and I think even worse than a 3 and out is how many times Missouri's had to settle for field goals in the last 4 games. And they even won some games where they could have had much better margin of victories if they could just convert some of those field goals into touchdowns. That was obviously a problem in this one. Their first 3 scores were field goals. So they were down 34-9 till basically a garbage time Tyler Beatty touchdown made it 34-17. And then on the flip side, the defense, this was a good game for them. I mean, when it's 10-6 at halftime, and then your offense doesn't score a touchdown till there's 2 minutes left in the game, you can't really blame the defense for the offense. Really couldn't keep the team in the game. But for looking back at like the whole season, just quickly, what a strange season for Missouri's defense. And there's already been an off-season move that we'll get to later that maybe had everything to do with the defensive turnaround. Yeah,
I don't know if that was. I feel like Steve Wilkes kind of mentioned the turning point just being the players finally understanding the scheme. Maybe that's true to some extent. I also wonder if there were maybe some issues in the locker room with Jethro Franklin, because you just don't usually fire a coach after 4 games if there's not something going on even beyond like the bad play in the field like that. He had coached here for 4 games. Like something was going on. Yeah. I think that's completely speculation, but that's what it feels like to me. Got maybe a problem out of the locker room. Maybe things started to get a little bit better.
Martez Manuel was the team's leading tackler, 77 total tackles. He also had the most solo tackles with 60. Interestingly, Isaiah Mcguire led the team in sacks with 6.
He had a pretty good season. He's a good player. I really felt like, everybody was playing better by the end of the season, but I really felt like Chad Bailey maybe kind of launched the defense to a next level that they were playing at. Like he kind of took over some snaps for. I guess he came in for Blaze a little bit, but he was playing just a lot by the end of the season, and that was great. He played really, really well.
Yeah, for not getting that many snaps early, he still finished the season 4th on the team in solo tackles. And then Jalen Carlisle with 4 interceptions on the season, and Chris Abrams-Drain with 3. There were a couple more that got called back against South Carolina. Yeah. That could have been on there.
Yeah, I mean, the future of the defense looks good. I mean, those are all guys that'll be here next year, assuming they don't transfer for whatever reason. But assuming all those guys are still here, I mean, the defense looks like it has the potential to be pretty good next year. And Jalen Carlisle, I think he maybe even has 2 more seasons. So a lot of good young talent on the defense.
Yeah, and I think the special teams all around we didn't have to talk about them too much, so that means they were mostly doing their job well.
Yeah.
You should basically, when you're talking about like special teams, if all you're talking about is that your kicker's good, then you're having a good season.
Yeah, no muff punts. Boo Smith was automatic catching punts. He did a really good job. So, yeah, special teams were great. Coach Link getting it done.
So Missouri finishes the season 6-6 overall, 3-5 in the SEC. They finish 4th in the SEC East behind Georgia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Finishing ahead of South Carolina and Florida is always nice. I think I saw CBS Sports had Missouri slated to some kind, like the lowest tier bowl that a SEC team could be in, basically.
Yeah, I mean, 13 of 14 SEC teams are bowl eligible.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts.
Except for Vanderbilt, obviously. But, I mean, I think I even read that there was a possibility that Missouri could actually be excluded from a bowl game if, like, every team got picked above them.
Surely.
That would be an extreme scenario, but I think that is actually within the realm of possibility.
Man.
That would be sad.
Yeah. I feel like some bowl would definitely rather have Florida than Missouri, though. So that could be
exactly. That's what I was thinking. Was 6-win Florida probably still, 6-win Auburn. Those programs probably still get picked ahead of Mizzou.
Well, CBS Sports thinks we'll be in the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, Michigan.
Never heard of that.
Against Western Michigan, of all teams.
Barely heard of that.
And they have Florida in the Boca Raton Bowl against UCF. That would actually be pretty interesting.
That would be
bragging rights for the state.
Well, yeah. In Florida.
Yeah, if I'm Florida, I don't want to play in that game.
Probably not.
If I'm Florida, send me to Detroit. That's scary.
Yeah.
Anything else about the Arkansas game? We're kind of doing Arkansas plus season roundup just a little bit, but
Arkansas is kind of an interesting team for the future. This is maybe wishful thinking on my part, but they've got two great coordinators. They have some really great seniors, some great seniors on defense, especially. I felt like there's a chance that Arkansas may have kind of a reset year next year. I think they could lose some really talented players. I mean, they still have KJ Jefferson, but they lose Traylon Burks. They lose Grant Morgan, Bumper Poole, all the, some really good seniors. I think it's very possible that Barry Odom could find a head coaching job somewhere. I think it's possible that Kendall Briles could move on. I think Arkansas will be an interesting team to watch this offseason and what kind of unfolds with them. It's very possible that they maintain everybody and they're just status quo next year, but I think I would like to see a little bit of movement.
Right now they're in the top half of the conference for their 2022 recruiting class. So they've got some reinforcements coming, but yeah, I feel like that their coordinators are both unique in that both of them have some baggage to overcome, and there may be reasons that they aren't super excited to be head coaches again. Or for Kendall Briles, he's never been a head coach, but obviously he has the baggage from Baylor and his dad.
Some family stuff.
Yeah, so obviously not ideal there. Maybe he doesn't want to be in the spotlight as a head coach and have all that stuff brought up again for whatever school hires him. And Barry Odom, I could see him being like, you know what, I'll just be a really good defensive coordinator for a while.
Yeah.
So as much I agree with you that I would love to see them move on to other places, especially Barry Odom. I'd be happy to root for him as the head coach of some other program.
I'd be happy for him to be anywhere else.
Yeah. But for those reasons, I feel like maybe they will stick around Arkansas for a little while.
I think I'd just like to see Sam Pittman without two excellent coordinators.
Yeah.
I think he's just been great at that CEO role. He lets the coordinators run the show, and he just kind of does his thing. But
they seem like a pretty good match right now.
They do.
Break them up, I say.
I agree.
I just stole your take right out from under you. So we're going bowling. We'll get the details on that soon. I want to mention there's been some all SEC teams released by different media outlets. I feel like we should be putting together our own all SEC team, and then people would be writing articles when we release it, because there's like every outlet imaginable like has their like end of the season all conference teams. But obviously Tyler Beatty has been the number one running back in most, if not all, SEC teams that I've seen. Harrison Mevis has been talked about, even though he got snubbed for the national awards. He's been the all-conference kicker. And then Michael Maietti has been on some all-conference teams as well. So shout out to those guys. Obviously, Tyler Beatty's going to be in like the postseason All-American
he'll
conversation.
Probably be first-team All-American. It's very possible.
So what do you want to talk about first, Kyle? Would you like to talk about the coaching carousel or transfers?
We can talk about this. We can talk about transfers. Just talk about a little more Mizzou stuff. You mentioned a couple of staff changes that are going on with Mizzou. So I guess we'll talk about. There's been a few guys transfer out of Mizzou football team, and those guys so far are Jatorian Hansford, Messiah Swinson, Ishmael Burdine, Chris Sheeran, and Daniel Parker Jr. So, a lot of those guys are a little bit older. Daniel Parker Jr. obviously was a senior with a COVID year left, so he's got one more year to go play somewhere. Chris Sheeran kind of got passed up on the depth chart. Ishmael Burdine for sure definitely did. With Darius Jackson came on really strong at the end of the year. It looks like he's not giving up that position. He's going to be a force going forward. Messiah Swinson just could never really get on the field. And Jatorian Hansford, he was probably one of the more impactful names on this list. But even he still wasn't starting, though, at defensive end.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those are all kind of just situations that make sense for those guys to move on. Mm-hmm. Do you want to mention any potential transfers into the program? Do we know enough about anybody yet to maybe keep an eye out on anyone in particular?
A couple of names I wrote down, and this isn't necessarily Mizzou related, but just some interesting names that are in the portal that you might recognize. One is Jafar Armstrong. Mm-hmm. He started his career at Notre Dame as a running back and actually played quite a bit, and then ended up transferring to Illinois. Played like one game at Illinois. I think he played like 3 offensive snaps on the entire season. So I don't believe he'll be coming to Missouri, but just still kind of an interesting name to watch. One that came out today is Adrian Martinez, who is a quarterback at Nebraska. Had a really good season, had a good career there. Cameron, I don't know if you want to add anything about Adrian Martinez. You probably watched him more than me.
I mean, not really. His stats were awesome. Maybe don't look at the turnovers, but
some of the intangibles maybe weren't quite there with him. But he's a talented player that Missouri recruited out of high school. And if Missouri's looking for a transfer quarterback this offseason, that might be a name to watch. Another name that actually Coach Drinkwitz follows this person on Twitter is Spencer Rattler, and he is transferring from Oklahoma. So I don't know if any of those names are all that relevant, but
I feel like both of those quarterbacks will be heading home. I think Martinez is from California, Spencer Rattler's from Arizona, so I could see maybe them wanting to go back home for their remaining or however much time they're going to spend in college.
Yeah.
I had a name here, let me see, that was linked to Missouri, and that was Syracuse tight end Landon Morris. He didn't play. He's a freshman who didn't play this season. So it was just reported that Missouri's reached out to him.
Interesting.
And then I thought it was worth mentioning Antonio Doyle. That's a possibility, I guess.
Yeah, that's still a possibility. Transfer from Texas A&M.
Yeah, originally from Missouri.
Another guy that Missouri did have an in-home visit with is Marcus Banks, who is a cornerback transfer from Alabama. And he did play quite a bit at Alabama, just never quite broke the starting lineup, which is probably pretty common for a lot of talented players at Alabama.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on transfers? We'll touch on recruiting real quick.
Yeah. It's definitely recruiting season.
High school recruiting.
And just, But signing day is December 15th. That is a couple weeks away. So obviously the coaches are going to try and get some in-home visits with a bunch of players in the coming weeks. They're going to try and make sure that all the current commits stay on board. I don't really think that there's anybody on my mind that I'm afraid of jumping ship at this point.
Which that's
pretty
rare.
A little bit rare.
Yeah.
Normally there's at least a couple players we're just praying to get to signing day with them, and anything can happen in recruiting. But
it seems like they've been getting the recruits together for events.
Yeah.
Like there were recruits like on site for Luther Burden's signing. They've been, getting together for just like.
Yeah, I think all the Kansas City guys were together the other night. There was 4 or 5 guys that are from Kansas City that are current commits. So
it seems like the staff is doing a good job of building, that kind of brotherhood mentality amongst them.
Yeah. Just rapid fire. I guess I'll kind of throw out some names to you guys just to keep an eye on. Chase Biddle is a safety. He was committed to SMU. He's a 4-star guy, and he just recently decommitted from SMU. He's been tweeting about Mizzou a little bit, and then he has a visit to Mizzou on December 10th. So that is probably one of the higher priority like high school guys you want to keep an eye on is Chase Biddle.
And we'll have him on campus right before National Signing Day.
Correct. Zion Young is a defensive end from Atlanta. Al Davis had an in-home visit with him recently. He was committed to West Virginia previously. Demetrius Hunter is a pretty interesting name, and he is a 4-star offensive lineman from Texas who was committed to Oklahoma, just recently decommitted with everything that's going on there. He's actually the cousin of current Mizzou commit Marcus Scott, and he's the cornerback who was committed to LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to visit Mizzou pretty soon. I'm not sure. I don't know if I have a date on that one, but
and Scott and his mom have both been tweeting like, "Hey, let's join up."
Exactly. So that's another one definitely to keep an eye on. He's a 4-star offensive lineman. Jeffrey Mimba is a JUCO defensive tackle from Independence Community College. He recently named a top 5 of Mizzou, Miami, Tennessee, Auburn, and Oregon, and I think he's pretty widely considered one of the better JUCO defensive linemen on the market still. So that would be huge. Jaden Harris is a cornerback from Georgia. He had an in-home visit with Steve Wilkes and Charlie Harbison recently. It was a couple nights ago. And then DJ Westlake named a top 8 of now. Listen to these schools:
Yep.
Mizzou, Alabama, LSU, USC, Georgia, Oregon, North Carolina, and Penn State. That's a pretty
some big programs
unbelievably elite list of schools there.
Yeah. Wait. So did you say Clemson?
No, Clemson's not in his top 8.
Okay.
So
of course
he has had the absolute strangest recruitment ever. I still think Missouri's in a great spot to land DJ Westlake.
He was considered just like pencil him into Clemson for a really long time, for like a year. And there was like crystal ball predictions, Clemson.
Basically
Clemson.
Anywhere not Missouri. Like anywhere on the coasts, just get me out of Missouri was basically his recruitment this time last year.
But things change. And we'll take him for sure. Was that your last one?
Just one more is Dion Walker. He's the offensive lineman from Cass Tech in Michigan, and I think they had an in-home with him recently.
So as we speak right now, Missouri sitting at 5th in the SEC according to 24/7 Sports for the 2022 recruiting class. Now that is above LSU and Florida. So it's Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Missouri.
Didn't Mark Stoops just get an extension?
He sure did.
He's living the dream. He's absolutely living the dream.
Yeah. His name was like kind of out there as far as some of these bigger coaching jobs, but
I mean, that's the appeal of a school like Kentucky. I mean, I'd even throw Missouri in there.
Yeah.
If you can win 7 to 9 games a year, you're never getting fired at a place like Kentucky. You're a legend.
If you can get to the point where, over at Missouri, are people going to be mad at?
I hope
Are people
not.
going to be mad at me if I say, if you can average 8 wins a year at Missouri?
No, I think that's just rational. I think if you can win 8 games a year, you're going to have maybe a couple years that you're winning 6 or 7. You're going to have a few years that maybe you're winning 9 or 10. But yeah, if you're just consistently winning 8 games a year, I don't think people are going to get tired of you at Mizzou.
If 6-6 with a bowl game is your floor, that's workable.
Yeah.
If the ceiling is 10 wins.
Basically Gary Pinkel.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, every year, give me like...
I hope that wasn't blasphemy for anybody out there, but...
I mean, I feel like the reaction to that would be more like, no, we should require more of our coach than even what Gary Pinkel was able to do, which I disagree, respectfully. Missouri, 5th in the SEC, 13th in the nation, recruiting class 2022, as of right now. with
pretty unprecedented for Missouri.
With improvements, obviously, a lot of these schools in the top 25 are going to add a few pieces here at signing day. But if Missouri can grab a couple more 4-stars,
and some of the transfers and stuff won't factor into the recruiting rankings and stuff, so that won't really impact it. But
JUCO commits, I think, would on 24/7, but like just a regular incoming transfer wouldn't. I'm very excited for signing day. If we can add 2 more 4-star players to this class, it'll be hard to beat that.
Seems pretty likely.
Even for Drinkwitz, like the rest of his Missouri career, I feel like he'll potentially always be looking back at this class as his best.
Yeah, if we can get to the point where, not everybody's going to work out. That's how recruiting works. Yeah. When you look back at recruiting classes from a few years ago, 4 or 5, maybe not 5 stars, they usually work out, but upper 3-star, 4-star players, not all those guys work out. It's just how it goes, and that's going to happen with this recruiting class too. Missouri's going to get in some 4-star guys that just probably never make a huge difference. But if you can get to the point where you have enough 4-star, 5-star players that you can afford to have some of those guys not work out, that's where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, the top schools don't need everybody to be a hit. Speaking of top schools, there were some top schools making coaching changes, and that has been pretty exciting.
Yeah.
If I do say so myself. Notre Dame, Oklahoma, USC, LSU. Now, I mentioned those 4 schools, and it's just 2 guys that we are really going to talk about. But
kind of a domino effect, though, where these destination schools, if you will, are the coaches of these destination jobs are choosing better schools, like what do they call it? Stepping stone.
Yeah. But that impacts a place like Missouri because we're going to have some players decommit and some players transfer that Missouri will want to keep an eye on. Whether they have good connections or are able to land any of these guys is a completely different thing. But when there's a little bit of chaos at the very top of the sport and you have some stability from your a little bit lower perch, that's good for the Missouri type programs.
Yeah, I feel like Oklahoma fans are in their darkest days of their entire lives right now with
Seriously.
Lincoln Riley picking somebody else and them losing so many of their commits and some of their players have transferred.
And they're headed to tougher competition in the SEC.
Their coach quit on them basically.
Yeah. Which I absolutely don't blame him. I go back and forth on taking the coach's side versus the player's side, and it's very easy for people that are not part of these programs to, come up with assumptions and things from the outside. But and obviously it's never going to be. Think about when anybody quits their job or gets fired or whatever. It's always awkward. There's always situations that are going to be rough to deal with, and I would not want to be a coach who's having to explain to my team that I'm leaving for a different job. But if that other job was paying me
$100 million, over the course of a few years,
Brian Kelly's getting $10 million a year.
Oh yeah,
including incentives to go coach at LSU, and I would maybe make the argument that was not the greatest hire by LSU. Am I crazy in thinking that?
I don't think it's a great fit.
Yeah, Brian Kelly was straight up Midwestern guy who I think he coached at Central Michigan and then Cincinnati and then Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
So he's barely left a 300-mile radius in his head coaching career.
Hope he likes gumbo. Yeah. What was I going to say?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to interrupt you.
Brian Kelly, I feel like it might just go up in flames at LSU. Surely there's enough talent there. He's a good enough coach, but I don't know. They couldn't do it with the true son coach, Ed Odron when he won a national championship, and they were okay. I don't know if that was just him kind of resting on his laurels and figuring, well, I won a national championship. I'm good. I'm set for life.
I think he was doing some kind of strange stuff off the field too, is what it sounded like. But
yeah, that's true.
Look at Dan Mullen. He has a couple good years at Florida. Has a disappointing end to this season. He gets paid $12 million to just leave, and I don't know. It's you can't really blame these guys. If if they can put up with being made fun of online for a few weeks, they just take their bag of money and walk. Like I think they're going to be okay. You just can't really blame Lincoln Riley sometimes for wanting to go to USC. He just has it made. He's set for life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I can't blame him at all. I mean, it seems like a perfect fit, and like a bunch of his Oklahoma recruits are from Southern California.
Yep. He's bringing them with him probably.
Yeah. Speaking of Florida, though, they hired Louisiana's head coach Billy Napier, who was actually a name that some Mizzou fans were interested in before Drinkwitz was hired. Napier has only had more successful seasons at Louisiana, and now will be taking his talents to Florida.
Which is that is a position that I've heard Barry Odom could be fit for, because I think he goes back with their AD that's currently there, so might be something to watch there. But
taking Billy Napier's job?
Yes.
Oh, I gotcha.
At Louisiana.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting.
Anyways, but
Dan Mullen, I was seeing if there's any rumors about where he might end up. He is rumored to be maybe being discussed as the next Auburn offensive coordinator, because they moved on from Mike Bobo.
Oh, yes. I heard that.
Yeah,
Mike Bobo.
Friend of the show, Mike Bobo.
Oh, man. I miss talking about him.
Yeah. So Dan Mullen might be replacing him. There's another name that's been linked to that job, and that is one Thomas Herman.
What's he doing now? Is he just out of the game for a year?
I'm going to find out, but
Mike Bobo was only there for 1 year, I think.
Correct. It was a little bit of an experiment, is the way I understand reading a few things, and it just didn't work out.
Sounds like it. Yeah, this has been one of the craziest coaching carousels ever. Notre Dame, can't remember his name, hired their defensive coordinator.
Yeah. That's just a move to keep everybody on board.
That's what it seemed like, a knee-jerk reaction to keep the recruiting class on board. We'll see how it works out for them.
Yeah. I mean, they are looking at a good situation as far as like their current players and the recruits coming in to be, top 10, like championship contending team for the next 3 or 4 seasons.
I definitely thought that they would give a look at Cincinnati's coach, though.
Absolutely.
Luke Fickell, is that his name? He seemed like a natural fit.
Yeah, especially considering that was the exact same like progression that Brian Kelly went through.
Yeah.
Tom Herman is an offensive analyst for the Chicago Bears currently.
I think I knew that.
I think we've talked about it
before.
before.
The Bears are awful, so.
Yeah. So he might be coming to the SEC.
Great.
Be interesting. Let's see. Any other?
Steve Sarkisian's really done great at Texas. He's done great things.
Yeah.
I think they were like 5-7.
They're going to keep him around, I think. I don't think
they
they're
have
going to be.
Yeah, at least for a little longer.
They can't just keep cycling through big name coaches like every single year. But he kind of inherited a mess, I believe. I think Tom Herman was not running a tight ship at Texas, and Steve Sarkisian may not be either. I don't know, but we'll see how that works out. Did you mention Missouri's coaching changes, or
no? I haven't yet.
Okay, well, take it away.
Just found out today. Literally, news came out almost at the same time that Missouri is going to promote Al Davis to full-time defensive line coach, and he took over for Jethro Franklin after 4 games. Almost immediately, the defensive line was better. That's great news. Not so great news. Casey Woods, the tight end coach and recruiting coordinator, is going to be the new offensive coordinator at SMU. So good for him. That's an upgrade, but
for sure,
really liked him, and I thought he was doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that tells you something. Yeah, like tight ends coach, it's hard to say exactly like what you're seeing on the field that goes back to that position, but anytime you have like a position coach being hired away to a coordinator spot, they were doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, and it's also a possibility that Messiah Swinton and Daniel Parker Jr. knew that their coach was leaving too. So that's of course speculation, but they're both leaving as well. So.
Yeah. Losing a position coach and the two, I guess you'd consider, well, Nico Hay, but 2 of the top 3 on the depth chart at that position is not necessarily surprising. Who was the player that was tweeting out like basically insinuating like I'm ready to take this starting job.
Probably Ryan Horstkamp.
Yes. So that was good to see.
He was a big time recruit.
Yeah.
So
and he's basically on Twitter indicating like, all right, it's my time. I'm ready for it. So hopefully he will succeed there.
We're desperate for a good tight end.
Yeah, I mean, just if you could like put Nico Hay and Daniel Parker Jr. together into one tight end, I think that would be what I'm looking for as far as like
Nico
production.
Hay had a great game against Florida.
Yeah. People have said on Twitter that Coach Drinkwitz's offenses have never really emphasized the tight end, but I feel like he likes to get the ball to whoever can do something with it. So yeah. I don't think he'll discriminate against the tight end. Were there any other crazy coaching stuff? It's been pretty crazy, but
it has been crazy.
Who's Oklahoma going to hire?
I don't know.
I guess they could go after Luke Fickell.
They could. I think we saw something weird about maybe one of Oklahoma's DB coaches like recruiting for USC and Oklahoma.
He like visited a recruit with Bob Stoops, who's kind of like acting as like head coach. Like Bob Stoops is like back in with Oklahoma being like an interim head coach basically. I think they just brought him in to like keep the recruiting class together or something.
Just make everybody feel good, just to coddle the fan base.
But I think people are speculating that he might actually return and be the head coach. I don't know. But I don't feel like that would be the best move, but who knows?
I suppose it's possible. Yeah, so Lincoln Riley might start off his career with some coaching violations or something, recruiting violations, whatever that would, if they find a way to prove that actually happened.
Yeah, that's so strange. But this like assistant coach, he was still employed by Oklahoma. Was
probably knew he was maybe going to go out to USC and was already recruiting players for USC before he was officially hired there.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Might as well just cheat, right?
Yeah.
They're not getting anybody in trouble. Will Wade still coaches at LSU. Just go ahead and cheat.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Lie and deny.
Yeah, that's what Kansas does. Producer Cameron, you want to give us an update on SEC Pick'em plus Nebraska?
No.
We decided we are going to pick the SEC bowl games as the final hurrah, last chance for us to beat the Patreon guest pickers. Is that what we're going with? Might as well.
I feel like we don't deserve it.
Let's go through this and then we can decide.
Okay. Sounds good.
Alrighty. Last week, our guest picker was Parker. Well, I'm just going to go to the season totals. This is a freaking disaster.
Okay.
All right. Last place, me, 59 points.
Okay.
Third place, Kyle, 65 points.
Okay.
Actually, technically second place. Also second place, Cameron, 65 points.
Oh, we tied.
Guest pickers, 78 points.
Oh,
we're not doing guest pickers anymore. Next year, no more guest pickers.
Too good.
He wants to retire.
If you were wondering, Parker got perfect. So.
Oh my goodness! How many points?
12 points.
Producer Cameron's just fed up over here.
Kyle got 9. You got 6.
At his wit's end.
4.
Yeah, just an assortment of folks just beating us at literally a game we invented.
Getting themselves on the trophy that we got for ourselves.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So they're gonna have a spot right here.
Ingrained in
it'll
of Kingdom Come.
It'll be on this desk for as long as we do the podcast, which is until we die. So,
wow!
Congratulations.
I don't know that we can fit that many things on here.
We'll have to go up the side. I
guess.
guess.
They said we could move it to the side after we run out of room.
Yeah. You just stick one right here on the football.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations to the Patreon guest pickers.
Well, all that to say,
they're up by 13 points.
There's not really any reason for us to pick the rest. Let's just call it. We don't have to think about it anymore.
I think it's done.
Move on with our lives.
Congratulations.
Congrats, guys.
They did it. They pulled it off. Now, producer Cameron's legitimately not happy for you guys. I let it be known I am happy for you.
I'm still a little bit mad about JD, but because he had like the greatest week of all time. But for the most part,
if it was close though, I mean, Parker would have just taken it all this week.
They earned it, fair and square.
And that's what we get for picking Nebraska.
Yep, that's true. See you next year.
I'm not picking Nebraska next year.
No,
Please
never.
Congratulations. We'll see you on the gridiron. Let's switch gears. Talk about basketball, if we dare.
Should be quick.
Do you dare, Kyle?
I'll indulge.
Missouri lost to Wichita State 61-55, and then they beat Paul Quinn 91-59.
Who?
Paul Quinn. They're an NAIA school, and
One guy, right?
one person. I'll just say it. They are a basketball team that Missouri never should have been playing. I don't understand this at all. I don't understand scheduling this opponent. They're an NAIA school, and if Missouri could have learned anything from this game, if they could have built something, if they could have put something out in this game to build upon in future games, then I wouldn't have a problem with this. But what I saw was Missouri try to run their offense and still not make shots, and then just have to rely on dominating one-on-one matchups, specifically Kobe Brown basically doing whatever he wanted the entire game against just inferior athletes. And that's how Missouri was able to pull away. I would like to say that Missouri was just like a better team with a better game plan, and they just, took care of business. And a 91-59 score might make you think that that's what happened. But I don't know. I still thought Missouri's offense was ugly. I thought they should have been able to execute and score points in the flow of their normal offense. And I don't know. I just think the way that they played, if they did the same thing against an SEC school, they're just not going to be successful. Like, the only reason they had shots that were as open as they were was because of the inferior athletes playing defense.
Yeah, it still took them like 10 minutes to break the tie. I mean, they were just at the beginning of the game. Just still could not do what they wanted to do offensively sometimes. It didn't look like they were running good offense. They were standing around still, missing open shots.
And they would swing the ball around the perimeter for an open three, but it wasn't like – it was just seemed like very I can't come up with the right word, but it still seemed – like slow paced. It still seemed kind of like plodding along, very deliberate passing around the perimeter to get to an open three. Mm-hmm. And that's just not going to work against better teams. Yeah. You can't just have these very deliberate kind of slow passes around the perimeter. The guy that's going to take the shot is going to be covered if you're playing against a fast team with, longer wingspan and all the kind of stuff that you're going to do when you play good opponents.
Yeah, shockingly, I agree with you. I think this game was meaningless. I think it was almost detrimental because Missouri's got open shots in this game. Like you said, they've got open shots in this game that aren't going to be there against anybody else on the entire schedule. It's almost detrimental because you've got guys thinking they're going to have this shot open next game against Liberty, and it's not going to be there.
No.
And I don't know. I understand – balancing your schedule with, they have a really tough non-conference schedule. I understand that. They play Kansas, they play Illinois, they play some really, really great teams, and you have to balance that with some easy wins. Well, there's probably no easy wins on Missouri's schedule no matter who they're playing, but it just can't be an NAIA school, in my opinion. Play some bottom tier Division I teams, but I just don't know about NAIA. Paul Quinn, sorry.
Kyle, I just pulled up.
I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I told Kyle not to do
Cameron tried to warn me while you were talking earlier.
No.
Okay, so it's Thursday. It's Thursday evening. Missouri's currently playing Liberty, and the score right now is 20-5 Liberty.
We're obviously not watching it. We just checked the score. But whatever the under is in this game, we recommend. Hopefully you took it. Missouri is going to probably not crack 50 points. This is going to be a plodding, slow-paced game with a bunch of missed shots. Unless it's Liberty, it sounds like they're shooting all right.
Yeah. I'm going to have to like pull myself together to finish this episode. I shouldn't have looked.
You're surprised?
I'm not surprised. I'm just feeling
You're just sad.
not happy about the basketball team. And thankfully, there's no other Thursday night games on the schedule. So we won't be in a weird situation with scheduling where we can't actually cover the game properly. But early in the season with like tournaments and weird stuff, this always happens. But
it's such a helpless position to be in because we've talked about the coaching situation. We know there's not going to be a change made this year. And next year, there's a very good chance we're just running it back next year with the same coaching staff and all that stuff. And it just feels a little helpless.
Yeah, I mean, one senior is scheduled to move on, right? Javon Pickett, that's it?
Yep.
So, I mean, literally running it back with the entire same roster plus Aiden Shaw as a freshman.
We play Kansas in about a week and a half.
That'll be fun.
At Kansas.
Before that, they do get to play Eastern Illinois. Eastern Illinois is currently ranked 348th in KenPom.
That's got to be almost last place, right?
348 out of 358.
Okay.
So 10 spots from the bottom.
That's a ways down there.
I looked at Eastern Illinois' schedule. So far, their only win on the season is against Division III Rockford University. So they lost to 320 ranked Central Michigan and 323rd ranked Northern Illinois.
Hasn't Missouri played both of those teams?
No, Missouri played. Yeah, that's very strange. Missouri beat Central Michigan and Northern Illinois. So this should be a cakewalk against Eastern Illinois.
It's almost like playing Paul Quinn.
Yeah.
Not
Not quite. The Eastern Illinois already beat the equivalent of Paul Quinn in Rockford, 96-64. They're 353rd on offensive efficiency, according to KenPom. So, again, look for a pretty low-scoring game. But that one, I would hope Missouri comes out on top. What do we do about this basketball season?
I don't know.
We play Kansas. We play Illinois.
We just hope that they somehow get better. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
I mean, there is the fact that Georgia, who is like 160th in KenPom, just knocked off top 30 team Memphis.
Iowa State ended up being better than we thought they were, and they just landed that transferred.
Yeah,
like Trey King or something. Yeah, so they're gonna be good.
So I mean, I was thinking it more like Georgia shows that you can still beat good teams even if you're bad.
Okay.
But also you could look at it as maybe Missouri loses all the rest of their games except Eastern Illinois.
Okay, let me ask you something. If you could have the scenario where if Missouri beat Kansas, they would lose every other game in the rest of the schedule, would you take that? If they beat Kansas, they have to lose every other game for the remainder of the season.
The other option is I just take it however it may come.
Yes.
I would 100% take beating Kansas.
Because it's very possible it happens anyway.
Yes, exactly. Like Missouri's after this Eastern Illinois game, Missouri will not be favored in another game until hopefully the last game of the season against Georgia at home. So, yeah, I mean, a loss to Missouri for Kansas would like knock them like down 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament, especially at Kansas. So,
I'll ask you one more question.
Okay.
And then I'll hang up and listen.
All right.
Does Conzo Martin want to win?
Now, that's cheating. You're cheating because I already told you my theory about this. I guess we're getting into it. I think it's possible that Conzo Martin has reached a stage in his coaching career where he is less concerned. Now, there may be some listeners that are just like, yeah, duh, where have you been? But where he's less concerned about winning basketball games as he is developing the character of the student athletes that are under his tutelage at Missouri. And that's commendable to an extent. Like, you want to, it's been very transparent with the idea that he wants to not only coach these guys on the basketball court, but help them develop into, men that he will be proud to whatever. But if that's coming at the expense of doing your job as the head basketball coach, then, but also none of it matters because of his contract. Like, this is bad. Like, oh man, I'm getting worked up.
It really does almost feel like he's so interested in just getting a good group of guys that enjoy being together and want to develop them as men, that it's almost like it's winning a secondary.
Yeah, potentially.
That's an extreme opinion, potentially. But it almost feels that way sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the way it seems some of the time is that there's just like this connection that he has with a certain type of player and a certain personality that he gravitates towards, and he sees them as the type of person that he can kind of take under his wing and, develop them into the best person they can be off the court. And we've seen players transfer out of the program. I mean, obviously the easiest example to point to is Xavier Pinson, because this team, as currently constructed for Missouri, is lacking a point guard, is lacking an experienced point guard who can run the offense. And Pinson is starting at LSU, and we know the only reason he left Missouri was because of personality conflict with Cuonzo Martin. And, we've seen other talented players come and go. Blake Harris, now he was a more unique situation because the only reason he came to Missouri was because Michael Porter Jr., but
Trey Jackson.
Yeah.
He's not a point guard, but...
Right. Yeah, there's just this weird vibe of like, it doesn't really matter. Now, every coach is going to be like this to an extent. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you're not going to buy into our program and, respect the coaching staff or whatever you're looking for, then it's not going to work out and you have to go somewhere else. But it seems like this program is at a point where the talent level is irrelevant, and the thing that is most important is this ability to get the most out of these guys off the court. And I can't even say that that's an awful thing.
Right.
But when I want Missouri basketball to win games, it doesn't work for me. Is that what you wanted me to say?
I think that summed it up pretty well.
You baited me into that.
I did, and I did it on purpose. But I felt like you had an interesting thought that was worth sharing. And you know what? Cuonzo Martin gets paid a lot of money. I think he is. I think he can take criticism, and that's part of the job. And whenever the team is as bad as it is, I think we're perfectly reasonable to assume like it's okay for us to ask what's going on here.
Yeah.
Why is the talent level so low? Why can nobody make a basket? Why don't we have a point guard? Do you care about winning?
Right.
And maybe that's a completely ridiculous question, but
please let us know. Let us know more than ever. Let us know in the comments. Is this like ridiculous, or is this like so obvious? Like, are you going to say like, welcome to the party? We've been thinking about this. We've been thinking this for a long time. Let us know what you think, because it's definitely a weird spot to like have to question the staff to this level.
Why? I mean, no staff changes in like 5 years or 4 years. That's rare. That never happens.
Yeah. And like they keep trying to run this point forward offense where they want the 4 spot to control the offense and run it through them when they don't always have the personnel for it. And they just kind of force it into being. And this season, I think they actually have the personnel for it to some extent with Kobe Brown and Boogie Coleman, but neither one of them are good enough at it to just forgo a traditional point guard.
All right, now it sounds like Amari Davis is playing some point guard, so I don't know.
I mean, that's fine. You gotta might as well go through the entire roster and let everybody have a shot at it and see who can do it, I guess.
We're at that point.
Yeah. I didn't mind watching Kobe Brown play with all the freshmen. I was like, yeah, whatever. Like,
yeah. See what they can do.
Yeah.
They were playing with good energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's the players' fault necessarily that Missouri is as bad as they are and going to be as bad as they are this season. I think the roster construction leaves a lot to be desired. Anything else this week?
I think that's it.
All right.
That's it for me.
Yeah, that's all I got. A special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Lee, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, and Tim Keynes.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's now 28-7 Liberty. Missouri's 1 for 14 from the field.
7%.
We'll see you next week.
After a loss.